I have met with hundreds of families in the state of Florida and throughout the country who've seen benefits from medical marijuana. This isn't a medical theory. It's not something that people are merely hopeful for. It has actually created a more meaningful quality of life in American families. Why wouldn't we be for that? Why don't we want to champion the opportunity for a parent to be able to hear their child speak for the first time? Why wouldn't we want to give a grandparent some respite who might be caring for a child that has compulsory and reflexive seizures? Why wouldn't we want to help a caretaker who might be caring for a parent of their own, suffering from Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or dementia, where we've seen improved research and growing opportunity for progress? The Attorney General's decision is a step backward, but it doesn't have to be, because the Trump administration can step forward and fulfill the promise that President Trump made on the campaign trail to respect the rights of states and to have a non-interference policy with medical marijuana. I've called on Treasury Secretary Mnuchin to issue guidance and instruction to financial institutions that they will not be prosecuted or harmed, or they will not face some adverse regulatory action if they continue to accept the deposits of medical marijuana companies. I am hopeful that Secretary Mnuchin has more foresight than we have seen from the Attorney General's office, and that he will provide this guidance. Mr. Speaker, I'd also ask that the President personally engage. I know the President. I know him to be a man of a huge heart who cares about people. Throughout the Trump family, there's a particular focus on caring for the vulnerable and children who have to deal with complex medical issues. I would hope that the President and that the members of administration would find it within their hearts to take action on this important priority. Let us not allow Attorney Jeff Sessions to limit progress in American families and in an industry that is growing, creating jobs and developing key innovations that can help people. Beyond dealing with this inartful rescinding of the Cole memo, there is broader medical marijuana reform that needs to happen. There is no excuse to maintain marijuana on the list of Schedule I drugs. Schedule I is reserved for those drugs that have no medical value, that can't help anyone, that should be subjected to the strictest scrutiny. Not even cocaine is a Schedule I drug. I don't even think that some of the drugs that are doing the most harm and causing the most deaths throughout the panoply of this opioid crisis are all Schedule I drugs. But marijuana is. It is indefensible, and it is indicative of a dogma, of a lie that the federal government has told to the American people for a generation. And think of the opportunity if we could come together and make some progress on this issue. Throughout the 115th Congress, we've had robust opportunities to debate about our discord and disagreement and to discuss issues where perhaps we won't be able to come together as Republicans and Democrats. But this should not be one of those issues. This isn't partisan. It's not even conservative or liberal. You just got to believe that the role of government isn't to hurt people who are trying to get better, or hurt people who are trying to help others who are trying to get better. We spend way too much time arresting people for marijuana in the first place. In the year 2015, 643,000 people were arrested for marijuana. That's one person every 49 seconds for a year. 574,000 of these arrests were for possession, not distribution or sale. 40% of all drug-related arrests are for marijuana possession. And this is particularly discriminatory. African Americans are more than 2.5 times more likely to be arrested for possession than whites. Marijuana is a $20 billion industry in this country. If we allow Attorney General Sessions to have his way, we'll drive that $20 billion into the black markets, into the hands of the money launderers and the cartels. And the consequence will be fewer solutions for patients. Marijuana has shown tremendous promise in the treatment of Alzheimer's to slow the protein deposits on the brain. For patients with AIDS and HIV, medical marijuana can stimulate appetite, slow muscle wasting syndrome. It can function as an anti-nausea medicine as an analgesic, and it can reduce peripheral neuropathy. For arthritis patients, there can be a reduction in certain types of symptoms that could clear people's airways suffering from debilitating arthritis. For chronic pain, we've also seen very favorable results for the many millions of Americans dealing with chronic pain who right now are getting prescriptions for opioids. So many of the prescriptions written for opioids today in America causing deaths, taking away our children, our aunts and uncles, our parents, could be avoided if we weren't prescribing opioids in the first place and if we had a lower impact alternative like medical cannabis. People with cancer have been given new hope, not only that these symptoms can be relieved through medical cannabis, but that the actual growth of tumors can be slowed. There's really great research. It has been published by the British Journal of Pharmacology regarding the anti-tumor properties that medical cannabis can have. But unfortunately, that research has to be done in Israel and in Europe and in other places in the world. Because in this country, we continue to maintain the indefensible policy that no research can reasonably occur on medical cannabis. As a matter of fact, this very Attorney General and this very Department of Justice have frustrated reasonable efforts to make more medical cannabis available for research, to unlock cures for the American people, and to help American families. Mr. Speaker, may I inquire as to how much time I have remaining?
One minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll conclude with this. I wasn't always a believer in medical cannabis, but I met a girl in my district who was being told by her doctors that she was going to have to saw her brain in half to stop the seizures from firing across. Today, that little girl is a medical cannabis patient. She's traded surgeries for softball games. She's traded doctors for dancing lessons. And she brings hugs and hope and joy to our entire community. It's for her. It's for the millions of Americans benefiting from medical cannabis that I call upon this administration to stop the Attorney General from harming Americans through his repeal of the Cole Memo. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I thank my bipartisan group of colleagues who've joined me this evening, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the Chair.